Hey, Judy.
Hi there.
How are you? It's like we're both still on the islands.
Yeah. With our two pictures together, it looks like we're somewhere together.
Got George logging in and Lou, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to mute everybody. The only person unmuted will be till we
Right.
get into it. So.
Okay. Sounds good.
Maybe I'll let people be unmuted at the beginning. We'll
Makes
mute
sense.
when the meeting starts. Make sure everybody's good.
Probably be a good idea. We still have a few minutes anyway.
Yeah. Right back.
Okay.
Have an American flag for the flag salute.
There you go. That's great. Is anybody going to be at the town hall?
Yes, I think the mayor will be there.
Okay.
And Janine's at the town hall.
Oh, okay. Hi, Janine.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Apparently
George.
you were correct. You should have been under planning board.
Okay, terrific, thanks.
Paul just emailed me. I made a mistake. I was like, yeah.
No
We'll
big
move
deal.
ahead. We'll be fine.
I actually spoke with Tom Collins this afternoon about it.
Oh, Tom, you're sideways.
I'm just checking my notes.
Who is Mike Camel? And Brendan
Mike?
Stidell.
I don't know them.
I don't have them listed.
Yeah, I don't have them listed either. I'm going to let them wait till someone tells me otherwise.
Yeah, Brendan Steidel is probably the account name for the Fiddler's Elbow people.
Oh, I know him. Yes. Okay.
it's probably Mr. Hurley or Mr. Donovan.
Okay.
Yeah, Kenneth.
Hi,
Oh,
Ken.
hi there. It is Ken.
yes.
You came in as Brendan Skidell.
Yeah, that's because I've been stealing the Fiddler's Elbow account and having chats with my friends, and it's his account.
Okay. Is
He's our
Mike
controller.
Camel also from Fiddlers?
Who's that?
Mike, Kamel?
No, don't know the name.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have them listed. I don't have them listed for Orchard Farms though either.
Okay.
Oh,
All right. I'm
holding-
leaving them in the waiting room.
How you doing, Tom?
I'm speaking.
Good, how you doing? Upside down.
Today was a pretty good golf day.
Well, you're right side up to us.
It was. I wasn't there, unfortunately, but I think my son was. I think Tommy went out to play.
Yeah, I was there.
He had a good time.
I'm
It's
supposed to
crazy.
play tomorrow. Of course, it's supposed to rain tomorrow too.
Yeah, it's been a crazy month. It's so strange. We've got some people who, read the rules and try to follow the rules and try to, read the executive order, and others who, we had one guy today say, "What do you think? I'm stupid?" I said, "The governor didn't ask for your SAT scores. Okay, the governor said you can do this and you can't do this. So
Right.
that's what we're enforcing." You scratch your head, but whatever. So, but things are okay over at Mendham?
Yeah, we opened up last weekend, like you guys.
Yep.
Twosomes only. We actually, next week they're going to let 9 holes only because so many people couldn't play with only, twosomes going out every 16 minutes.
Yeah, it's so hard to manage this process.
Yeah.
And I was just on an hour call on PPP, which is its own crazy world, but
Right.
there's so little guidance. So, for
Hey,
example,
Lou.
Tom Hurley, our general manager, called over to Mayor Jacobs today to say, "Can you give us a little clarity, because township golf tennis courts can be open, private courts can be open. I know the executive order says this, but can you get some clarity?" And the clarity is, yeah, golf courses or clubs, private clubs that have tennis courts, you still can't use them. So I don't know if it seems a little inconsistent with having public courts open, right? And you're still sitting, probably at more risk on a public course, but who knows? I don't know. Ugh. Let's see. Turn that off. Judy, are you going to wave the American flag as your backdrop so we can say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Hey, Colin.
Hey guys, how
Right
are you?
here.
Good. Awesome. That's
I'm
great.
ready.
Hey, Lou, are you able to unmute your microphone on the computer Zoom?
Yeah, he's not on. I only have video. I don't have audio for Lou yet.
Okay. I think he's working
It
on it. Hey,
just says
Carol.
connecting. Maybe he's got to call in as well.
Just like an enlarged Brady Bunch.
You're right, Jeff.
Now, just so you know, we've been doing this with the township committee. When it records, it's only going to record the screen of the person who's talking,
Right.
not of everybody like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, that's just fine. It makes sense because you have to do that when you're sharing too, your screen. You have to go to that mode to see that.
That means
think
everybody
Lou's
else can
good now.
misbehave.
Yeah.
Hey, Judy.
Hello there.
Yep, we got you, Lou.
You're
You
in.
got me?
All right.
We can hear
All right.
you.
Hey, Lou.
Hey, how
George
you
is
doing?
still muted.
I think he muted himself.
Okay, very good.
I've
I'm
unmuted
going to do that
everybody.
later as
And as
well.
we get started, Carol, I'll go ahead and mute everybody except those that are speaking.
Okay,
We still have a few minutes.
yeah, there's a couple of minutes yet.
Yeah.
Not everybody's on. I don't think we have quorum yet, do we?
Let's see, me, you, Lou, George. Just 4, yeah.
Paul's been emailing me. He's getting his act together. He'll be in shortly.
Okay.
Okay.
How about Frank? Joining too?
He should be.
Janine, how come we can't see you?
I don't actually have a camera on our desktop ones. And rather than use my phone and then have double echoing,
Yep.
I just chose to have my name. And this way, It doesn't matter what I look like, people.
She's wearing her pajamas, right?
You're cheating, Janine.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah, you're cheating.
Persian rollers, the whole bit, pajamas, bathrobe, you know it.
Hello, Scott. How are you?
I am well, guys. How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
That is on. Good.
So we got
Okay.
5 board members, plus Colin.
Okay.
Scott, we're having trouble seeing you. Scott, there's a window behind you. We're having trouble seeing you.
Yeah, that should go away in about 10 or 15 minutes as that sun gets a little lower. I can't do much about it.
Except close the blinds, right?
Oh no,
Oh,
those
those are
blinds
good
are drawn. It's coming in pretty good through them.
Yeah. Nice sunny
Won't be
room.
long.
Hey, Paul.
Oh, that's what it was. Paul was creating a fun background. Look at you, Paul.
Do we know who Ben Robinson is?
Hey, Rich.
He's with Gladstone.
Okay.
Anyone know how to get that background behind you?
You have to go to the bottom left where it says stop video. Click the up button, and then there should be choices for a virtual background.
You can also add a picture from your computer also, which I think is what
Chicago
Paul,
tonight.
yeah. I think it's got the Chicago skyline behind him. I recognize the bridge behind you there. Over the.
Hi, Rich. Congratulations
Hi, guys.
to Tara.
How do I do the background?
Hey, Rich.
Rich, you go to the bottom left of your screen with your mouse to the stop video button. There should be an up arrow that you can click, and there's a virtual background option. And if you have any choices, it'll be in that spot.
Hi,
Or you
Nick.
can load your own picture.
Hi, everyone. I'm trying to
Hi,
find a
Nick.
virtual tie.
Looks like I think we have a quorum now, Carol.
Uh-huh. Scott, I want to thank you again for helping me.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad it's working well for you.
Yeah, I've been using it.
Hi, Larry.
Now, the whole world
Hey, how you guys
has.
doing?
How are you?
I wish I'd have bought their stock in January.
If we only knew.
Imagine.
I'm still getting someone named Mike
Oh,
Campbell.
Oh my God,
Is he with
Scott,
someone?
Rich, that's like psychedelic.
Did
Like
you have
your
Judy?
face is like all
Mike
washed out.
Campbell?
He's with Gladstone Design.
Okay.
I think the background didn't work right, so we're gonna have to quit that.
Actually, it's kind of cool. It's like something out of the Wizard of Oz or something.
It's supposed to be a beach, but I don't know what
Well,
happened
that's the
there.
one that Judy and I are using, but
Yeah, we
this
have-
one's drawn over your head.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be a little bit closer to the camera,
Yeah, I think that's
or
it.
else you fade out.
That's great.
All right, so how do I turn this damn thing off?
Same way you turned it on, just backwards.
When we're ready for the.
There he is. I hope you got George in video now.
Mr. Mayor?
Larry's an expert at this now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
Like the
sure
fifth one.
he is.
So has the fog rolling in?
Yeah, I'm still in San Francisco, or at least
There's Nick.
pretending I am.
Oh, look, there's Frank.
Frank
George,
made
click
it.
on your microphone.
Nick is on. Yep. Tim is on. Okay.
Frank is on.
There's Frank.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Frank is just a picture.
Yeah. It's unanimated.
He's so stoic. He's very stoic.
I don't have a bridge.
Hi, George.
Hi.
Is Anna here yet?
No.
Okay, I'm just trying to keep track.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, Anna's the only member of the board that's not here.
All right, Mayor, is that a virtual background or the real background?
His head's moving.
Yep. Oh,
There you go. Oh, it's state flag. There you go.
Oh, that's the Bedminster flag.
Oh, I see it. It's the same.
Wow.
Here comes Anna.
And do we have anybody here from Old Farm Orchards?
I don't think so.
I understand
Okay.
that they will be joining
Good
in. I
evening,
just-
Miss Anna.
Okay.
Oh, Anna's on.
There she is.
hey, Rich, it was
Anna.
better before. Turn it back to the other way.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm teasing you. I said it was better before.
I got Bogey in the background. Can you see him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. we're good.
Backing
It
up.
goes, it
Keep
goes
backing
well
up.
with, it goes
When
well
you
with
hit Route
Colin.
206, stop.
It goes well with when Marilyn Monroe in Colin's room there.
That's right.
Okay, I think John Coates is coming in.
All right.
There he is.
Yeah, there should be John, Paul, Fox, and their attorney, David Kronheim. Okay, no, where are you? Up here. No picture, no. You can stand behind me and make funny faces.
Hey, Janine,
Yes.
are any of the papers over at over my
Town
mailbox?
Hall?
Yeah.
No, but I'm sitting at my desk and Robin's standing right behind me. I can certainly ask her to be a courier if you'd like.
Sure.
You're in the main meeting room? That's what that big horse's head is?
Yes.
Hold, please.
This is John Coates. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can, John.
I can hear you, John. How are you?
Yes.
Now we can't see you.
Maybe it'll be like Belichick and his dog will come sit in his chair.
And now I'm Tom Brady.
There you go.
As long as it's not like the weather guy who wasn't wearing his pants when he was doing the broadcast. We don't want any of that.
We'll just assume that that isn't happening anywhere here tonight.
Exactly.
Not that you're aware of.
Right. I mean, Frank could do it because he's got his picture up there, right?
That was a low blow.
Banish, we just get your mug shot because you're sitting in your underwear or what? All right.
There he is.
There he is.
Much better.
We can't hear you. Click on your
Can't hear you,
microphone,
Frank.
Frank. Yeah.
It's just like the
sounds much
meeting
better
room. I
on
can't
mute.
hear Frank.
There he
You're
is.
muted.
Now you can hear me, right?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, so, sorry. All right, I'm here.
Tom Malman seems very amused by all of this.
It's a great group.
You're going to make me look at that picture of me, right? Instead of the other picture. Killing me with it. Killing me. Oh, my God. Okay.
This Zoom sure makes you look good.
Thanks a lot, Karen.
No, not just you. I mean, all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks,
yeah.
I'm sticking with it.
You're like the judge in The Natural.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Oh.
I don't think I ever looked worse. Okay.
I think the light is finally setting on Scott there. All right. Let me go back to speaker view here.
Janine back yet?
I am, 1 second.
Okay.
And then I'm back and I will read our, you know what? I'm back. Copies are being brought over right now.
Thank you.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Janine, let's take a roll call.
Mayor Jacobs,
I am here.
Committeeman Hickey,
Here.
Mr. Strackloff,
Here?
Mr. Travellini,
Here.
Mr. Rodelius,
Here.
Mr. Leonard,
Here.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Here.
Mr. Zupnik,
Present.
Ms. Orabana,
Here.
Mr. Walter,
Here.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
Here.
Open public meeting statement. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk and sent to the Bernardsville News and the Courier News and to all subscribers and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey on January 16th, 2020.
Okay, let's have the flag salute, please. I think we have a flag.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Larry.
And Judy.
Judy has a flag with us too. Okay, I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the
flag
Flag.
of the
United States of
United
America.
States of America
And to the
and to the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which it stands,
stands one nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
That was terrible.
That was awful.
We're not getting any singing contracts.
By the way,
That's a
just
choreography of 20 people. That's
I may not have been standing, but I wasn't kneeling.
All right. We have some business to tend to. We have our minutes from March 5th. We need a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
State your
I'm
name.
sorry.
What's that?
Jeff,
I
you-
motion. Second was who?
And who was second?
Scott.
Scott.
Scott, thank you.
All in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstained? Motion is approved. We need a motion for our March 12th minutes. Do I hear?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Abstain?
I think Larry and I have to abstain because that was the lead hearing.
I believe it was.
Correct.
You and the mayor, I believe.
Right.
Let's just make it audible. I think it was Nick was the motion and who was the second?
I
Jeff,
was.
Jeff Leonard,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
It's good to, because we're recording this, it's good to say your name before you make a motion or second. And then, it's good for the roll call, like on the resolutions, we'll do it with a specific roll call and try to state your name, aye, or state your name, whatever your vote is.
Okay, Tom. We do have two resolutions. We have for USET 2020-2007 resolution. We need a motion to approve.
So moved. Scott Zupnik.
Second,
Who was the
Rich.
second?
I'm going to go with Scott with the motion and Rich seconded.
Yes. We need a roll call.
Mayor Jacobs,
Aye.
Committeeman Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Strackloff,
Aye.
Mr. Travellini,
Aye.
Mr. Rodelius,
Aye.
Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Aye.
Mr. Zupnik,
Aye.
Ms. Orabana,
Aye.
Mr. Walter,
Aye.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
Aye. Motion is approved. Resolution 2020-008 for Elite. We need a motion to approve.
So moved. Scott Zuppich.
Scott and Rich.
Roll call, please.
I'm skipping Mayor Jacobs and Committeeman Hickey. Mr. Strackhoff?
You have to skip me because
Yeah,
I
he
did not
voted no.
vote for this.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Just cl-
Mr. Travellini?
Aye.
Mr. Rodilius?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni?
Abstain. I wasn't there.
Mr. Zup?
He
Yeah, right?
he recused. He's not called on this because he recused.
That is correct. I'm sorry. Mr. Zupnik?
Aye.
Ms. Urbana?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
I was an alternate, so I don't know if
He does. You don't get to vote, Tim, because there were 7 eligible members.
Okay. And Chairwoman Gutschall?
Aye. Motion is approved. Okay, moving on to public comments. Do we have anybody from the public?
Judy, you're
No, in
mute.
this-
You're mute, Judy. Give her
I
a
don't have any
second.
members of the public that have registered for the meeting or have signed on with telephone.
There is no one? Did I hear that right?
None.
Okay. Then there's no public comments for tonight. Okay, we have a determination of completeness, Relicott. Paul?
Madam Chairman, this is the application on the corner of Main Street and Route 202, right across from Delicious Heights. I wrote a letter dated April 28th. There were additional documentation submitted by the applicant in response to the prior correspondence. They've changed the application in that there's also a subdivision involved as well. I in my letter identify a couple of variances that are, waivers that are required. It's my recommendation that these waivers be granted and the application be deemed complete.
You faded out at the end. Deemed complete, Paul?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so we need to have a motion and a roll call. Do I have a motion?
Nick
So
Strackhoff.
moved, Jeff.
Motion is Nick. Jeff, it's a second.
Yep, that's fine.
Roll call. Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Committeeman Hickey?
Oh, wait. Is this, this is BOA or this is?
Yeah, this is a Board of Adjustment application.
Board of Adjustment.
Aye.
Sorry. Mr. Strackhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Travellini?
Aye.
Mr. Rodilius?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni?
Aye.
Mr. Zupnik?
Aye.
Ms. Urbana?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Chairwoman Gutschall?
Aye. Paul, what do you think on a date for this? Next week or are they?
No, they won't be ready to
They have
notice
to
for
notice
next
too.
week. Right.
They have to-
I would say we should put this into June, whether you want to do it the first meeting, the second meeting, it's up to you. I know Bedminster Farms is also going to want to be heard, but they have not completed at the Board of Health yet.
So you want to put it, on the first week then, and we'll see where we are with farms?
We can do that.
Okay, let's do that. So we'll have it the first week in June.
What's that date?
Oh,
June 4th.
June 4th. Okay, June 4th.
And Janine, will you contact the applicant, make sure they get all the copies in for the board members, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready. Oh, we have another pending application for Bedminster Farms. Is there anything you want to talk about there, Paul?
No, Madam Chair, that application is still waiting to be heard and approved by the Board of Health.
Okay, so we're not ready to schedule.
Just real
Correct.
quick, when's the next Board of Health meeting?
They are the third Thursday of the month.
Okay.
So that wouldn't be heard until June? Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's going to be tough for June because the Board of Health has got to deal with it in the third week of this month. And by the time that gets done and it's scheduled for the hearing, you have to get everything in and submitted. This board's got to determine it complete. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
At best, it would be the second meeting in June.
Okay, all right. All right, so I guess we're ready for Lamington River Farms.
Madam Chair, if I
Right,
could just
this
step in
is
for
a
1
tough-
second. That
Yes.
This is actually a planning board hearing, not a board of adjustment hearing. So the mayor and councilman can stay in on this one.
Yes, right, I see that. Mhm.
Madam Chair, quick question, under new business.
Yes,
And I guess this goes to Paul. Paul, whose responsibility is it to maintain the retention basin at Bedminster School?
It's the school's responsibility.
Is there any citation we can give them? Because that's almost as overgrown as the one behind the cook shack.
We
Not
don't know
really.
that.
Yeah. But we don't have jurisdiction directly over the Board of Ed, Rich. They're like a sister elected entity, sister to the governing body.
All right, well then I have a question for Haggerty when he comes back to these meetings.
Turnabout is fair play.
Ain't it the truth?
You know, never mind.
He won't be speaking as a board member, so we won't be able to question him.
That deniability.
Neither will I. I'll just be an interested party too, Tom.
okay, so are we ready now for Lamington River Farms?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
Terrific. This is Tom Malman, folks. Thanks for meeting tonight. We appreciate it. And this is an application for basically Fiddler's Elbow. Lamington River Farms is the entity that owns it, but it's Fiddler's Elbow Country Club that you all know very well. We've been before this board, many times over the past, I think the last 10 years, at least in my experience, for a number of different amendments to their existing operation. This is no different in terms of what's being proposed. It's sort of the continued evolution of the golf club. And in terms of what's being proposed tonight, we'll have exhibits for you from Rob Michello, but basically it's a pool bar, it's a cart barn expansion, and new pickleball courts. And you folks may know about pickleball. It's all the rage these days. A lot of golf clubs are putting them in, and it's really for the older set, I'm told, that I now fall into, but it's a game that a lot of older folks like to play, and so many clubs are putting in those courts. We have reports from Mr. Ferrero, from Mr. Banish. You may see we have a number of folks here tonight. Ken Donovan and Matt Willigan from the club are here. My associate Nicole is here. We have Ben Robinson and Rob Michello from Gladstone Design. I was going to call Rob as our only witness tonight. We have other folks available if questions arise. We will address the comments and the reports that we have. You may have noticed the report from Mr. Ferraro that in fact some of this work has already commenced, and we apologize for that. Mr. Donovan actually has issued a letter of apology because that should not have happened, but it did. But the work is not ongoing. It stopped quite a while ago. This application was actually filed back in January and was scheduled for a hearing in March before the world changed. And so we do appreciate the board meeting tonight so we can get this underway. So unless you have any questions of me, I'll call Mr. Michello and begin the case.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Mr. Michello, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
And please state your name and address and spell your last name.
Robert Moscello, 265 Main Street, Gladstone, New Jersey, and it's Moschello.
Thank you, Mr.
Security,
Michello.
Mr. I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
We recognize and accept the qualifications of Robert Michello as a professional engineer. If anybody has any questions, you can ask them, but he has been recognized in the past. And
thank you, Mr.
So,
thank you, Mr. Cohen. So Rob, can you take control and get the exhibits on the screen?
Yes, I understand I can share my screen, so I will do that and put up the PDFs of the 6 exhibits that we had submitted. So just give me a second here to get this going.
Yeah, okay.
All right, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yes.
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 Great. All right, awesome. All right, so let me just minimize this. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start off with Exhibit A1, which is entitled Aerial Exhibit. It's dated May 7th, 2020, and it's Exhibit A-1, prepared by this office, just to give a brief overview of the property limits and some of the improvements that were already constructed on the property. So can everybody see? I guess there's a pointer or my hand here on the screen that I'm going to use to point to certain things. Hopefully everybody can see that. So first off, just for some context, Route 78 is on the top part of the plan, north being up. Rattlesnake Bridge Road is on the east or right side of the plan. The Lamington River basically flows, is the municipal boundary line between this property and Reddington Township, and that's basically following the orange line you see on the plan here. And the subject of the application is Lot 1 in Block 37.01. It's 118 acres, and it comprises mainly 9 golf holes and the improvements that represent all these support buildings and facilities for the golf course. I'm just going to zoom in.
Rob,
Yeah, Tom.
Just point out the balance of the course is actually in Reddington Township. We just use your cursor and just show where that is.
Yes, correct. You can see on the left side of the plan here, as it goes off to the west, the golf holes that are contained within Reddington Township, and they go further off the page here. And it's over 300 acres that are in Reddington as part of the golf course. But there's 9 holes that exist in Bedminster Township that are part of the golf course on the 118-acre parcel.
And the river's the border.
That is correct. The river is the border. So I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit for some more detail. The entrance comes off of Rattlesnake Bridge Road. You come in the long driveway. You've got the improvements that were constructed here in the core area, as we call it. Give the screen a second to refresh. You've got the clubhouse and all the associated improvements around there. The pro shop building, which was constructed. The L-shaped parking lot, which is approximately was approved for 540 parking spaces, slightly less are currently constructed. You have the cart barn building, which is on the southern portion of the plan here. Next to that building is a fitness building that was constructed. Moving over to the east, you have the academy building that was built on the driving range. The driving range is part of the improvements that were put in here and back in 2013 when they were approved. In the middle of the plan, you have the pool complex that you can see here along with the pool building that's here on the plan. Just to the east of that, you've got the paddle tennis courts that were constructed. There's 4 of them, and a support building that goes along with those improvements. And then to the north of that, you'll see there are 5 tennis courts that have been constructed as well. And then of course you have the existing golf improvements that surround this this area. Moving on to was there a question?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. Moving on to the next exhibit map I have here is entitled Exhibit A2, which is called Core Area Proposed Site Plan Rendering. It's dated May 7th, 2020. And this is a rendering of the core area of the project. And what we've done here is we've kind of washed out some of the improvements in the background, and we've only highlighted what's basically going to be the subject of tonight's application, which are 3 improvements Mr. Malman previously alluded to. You have the pool bar building that's shown here in the plan by the pool complex. You'll have the addition that was put onto the cart storage building down here in the lower portion of the plan. And you have what we're referring to the pickleball courts, which is going to take the place of one of the tennis courts. Before I get into the details of those improvements, there was some comments in Mr. Ferraro's review letter about what has actually been constructed on, what actually is still approved on the property that has not yet been constructed. While a majority of the improvements, as I just pointed out on the previous exhibit, have been constructed, there are a few items out there that are still approved under previous applications, but have not been built. And Paul asked us per his letter to just put that on the record this evening before we get into the new improvements. So I'm just going to point those out on this plan now for the board, starting with what amounts to the 6 golf cottages that were approved as part of the original application. There's 4 of them that are along the entrance drive. You see them here with some parking associated with them. And then 2 more golf cottages that are closer to the core area and some parking associated with those. None of those improvements have been constructed yet, but were approved. You'll also notice on the plan here a small outline. That is the 6th tennis court that I pointed out. That has not been built, but was also approved as well. There was a minor addition on the clubhouse for a portico and canopy that was also not constructed, but was approved. And while you can't see it on this exhibit, it's actually where the pool bar is. There was a 7,000 square foot tennis pro shop building that was approved as part of the original application, and that has not been constructed on the property. So, with that being said, I'm going to move on to Exhibit A3, and that is entitled Enlarged Site Plan Rendering. It's dated May 7th, 2020. And what I have here is a blow-up of the 3 areas in question that we're going to be discussing this evening. And I'm going to start with the pool bar that's here in the middle of the screen. So here's the existing pool building. You've got the parking lot to the west. The access to the pool area is through a passageway through the pool building itself into the pool complex, where you have the existing main pool. Just to the south is the kiddie pool and splash pad. You've got a patio around the pool and seating areas and patio areas all around that. And then just to the north, what we have highlighted here is the proposed pool bar, which was constructed approximately 2 years ago, as Mr. Malman pointed out, without a prior approval. So the pool bar itself is a 728 square foot structure. It's basically open on all 4 sides, and then contained underneath the roof structure is the bar facilities for serving drinks and servicing the clients there around the pool. There's a patio area where there's some seating, and you have pathways leading to the main patio around the pool. We have a photo of the pool bar. I'm going to go to that exhibit now. It's entitled Exhibit A5, and the title of that is Pool Bar Photo Exhibit, dated May 7th, 2020. And this is a photo of the pool bar as it is out there on the property, taken sometime, I believe, last year. As you can see, that the pool bar itself, the bar facility, and the patio that's in front of it. Next item we're going to move to is the addition to the cart barn building. Again, as Mr. Malman pointed out, the construction of this building actually commenced over the winter time, but a stop work order was issued, and construction was stopped on it. Essentially, what they're proposing here is you have the existing cart barn building, which is 225 feet long. Carts come in through various doors that are on the building. There's a door on the front here, a door on the far right, which you can't see on the plan here, and then there's 3 doors on the left for access to the cart barn building. And then outside of that, there's an existing asphalt area where this orange addition is being shown that they use to either enter or exit the building. What they're proposing to do is enclose that space with a 24-foot by 63-foot addition. It's 1,512 square feet in size, and it's going to be used for basically 2 primary purposes. One is for golf bag storage, and the other one is for working on the golf carts and loading the golf carts and cleaning them before they go back out onto the course. I'm going to go to Exhibit A6 momentarily, which is the architectural plan that was submitted. It is entitled Construction Floor Plan, Exterior Elevations, and Miscellaneous Detail Sheet A100, prepared by F.J. Rawding, AIA, and that's Exhibit A-6. This was submitted as part of the application package. And you'll see here on the lower left-hand side of the plan, this is the outline of the existing cart barn building. There's 3 doors. 2 of those doors will be removed. 1 door will remain. And then the addition will be added onto it, where the back part of it will be golf bag storage, and the front part will be for loading up the carts and bringing them out of the building. Currently, the bag storage is in the existing pro shop, and it's I believe, as I understand it, it's taking up space there. So they want to move the bag storage to the cart barn, to the cart storage building, so that when a member is coming onto the property, their clubs will be stored there for them. They'll be able to load the cart with those clubs and then bring the cart over to where the member will be getting on the cart to go out and play golf. As opposed to doing that at the pro shop, they could do it at the cart storage building instead. Some items related to the area around, oops, sorry. Mr. Ferraro had a question in regards to his review letter about the, give it a second to load there. There we go. The cart path that's shown to the back side of the building here. There's no door, there's no garage door to enter the back side of the building. So after talking with the golf course themselves, this portion of the cart path, there's no need to actually construct this and tie it into the building and add this additional impervious coverage. As a matter of fact, the cart path does not even connect to the side of the building today. It only comes in from the front. There's actually a transformer out here for electrical power where this cart path is shown. So there will be no proposed impervious increase due to this addition, since it's already being built on existing impervious coverage that's out there today. And it won't have any impact on the existing bioretention basin, which is just to the west of it, that's shown here on the plan, which was the stormwater management for a portion of that building. The last component of the application is the pickleball courts. So as I mentioned previously, there were 6 tennis courts that were approved on the property. 5 of them were constructed, shown here on the plan. The 6th court, which is outlined in this dash here, you can see on the plan, that was not constructed. Instead, what we're proposing to do is take the outline of that court, turn it basically a little more than 90 degrees and line it up with the 2 existing tennis courts and basically create an area of approximately, an area of 60 by 120, 60 foot wide by 120 feet long, hard true surface that would be used for the 4 pickleball courts. They basically fit on what amounts to one area of a tennis court. The thing that we'll be requesting here at the pickleball courts is we are requesting that they would be lighted in accordance with your recreational lighting standards 13-601.6 of your ordinance for exterior recreational facilities, which is your conditional use standards for lighting. And in terms of how these would comply, the lighting themselves, as your ordinance requires, they'd be extinguished no later than 11 o'clock p.m. The light stanchions will be 20 foot in height, surrounding the perimeter of the courts to illuminate just the courts only, and they'll have shielding so that the lighting was only directed towards the court itself, and downward lighting, very similar to the lighting that's on the platform tennis courts that are out there today. And the illumination levels from that lighting will comply with your requirement that they would not be more than 0.1 foot candles from the nearest property line. In this case here, these courts are almost 900 feet from the closest property line. I'm going to go back to Exhibit A2 to show that the courts are located basically almost in the middle, and we're about 900 feet to the property line along Rattlesnake Bridge Road. I'm actually out here towards the front there. So they're the same distance basically as the platform tennis courts, which are just to the south of these on the other side of the tennis courts.
Is there any questions from the board?
Yeah,
I have a question. It's Lou.
Say who you are, please. Say who you are.
This is Lou. This is
Okay.
Lou.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Michello, the sixth proposed tennis court would also have had lighting if it was built?
No, the tennis courts were not lit, so that the 6th court would not have had lighting on it.
Are the current tennis courts lit?
No, they're not. Only the platform tennis courts are lit.
Okay. So the additional lighting would be truly additional lighting, not in place of?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else from the board?
Yeah.
Say who you are.
This is Rich Travellini. So in the guidance we got from Frank, previous applications have been approved for up to 125,000 square feet of structured development. Correct, Frank?
That's correct, Rich.
Okay, so in this one, you know, would push all the approvals up to 127,000, an increase of a little less than 2%. My question for Mr. Marcello is, how much of the 125,000 square feet that we've approved has actually been built? It seems like you're stockpiling all these approvals and meeting out the projects a little bit at a time. And then even after the approvals, you're building shit that you didn't get approved. You're building stuff that you didn't get approved yet. You know, and the only thing that we've done has been supportive of you guys, so I don't really get why you would have started building stuff.
So I can answer the question in regards to what, in terms of 125,000 square feet, and I was going to get to just the last zoning numbers, just to kind of go over that, because we are asking for a design waiver for the increase in square footage. But before I get to that, you're correct. There was 125,609 square feet is previously approved on the Bedminster portion of the property. Of that 125,000, the 6 cottages amount to approximately 20,000 square feet, and they have not been built. And the, I'll say the tennis building, which was 7,000 square feet, has not been built. So essentially, just quick calculations, about 98,000 square feet of the 125,000 has been built on the property.
And can I ask, with respect to the status of those other projects previously approved, is there still a commitment to move forward with them that would make this, you know, gross variance unnecessary, or is that still in the game plan?
Perhaps we can have Mr. Donovan answer that question when Mr. Michello was done. Probably better if we can answer that.
Okay, that'd be better for the applicant themselves. Okay.
Yeah. I had a couple of questions for you, Mr. Michello. In terms of the setback requirements, any issues there with these new improvements?
No, the new improvements, there's no setback issues. All the improvements comply with the zoning.
And obviously building height's not an issue as well. Lot coverage not an issue?
Correct. Building height's not an issue. There was a lot coverage variance that was issued for the project. The overall coverage was 13.09%. Given that we haven't built out the other improvements, and these improvements are being constructed on areas that were already impervious, there's no impact on the overall lot coverage number for the project.
So no impact on stormwater runoff. That's all in the prior calculations.
That is correct. We do have one design waiver that is a part of the application.
Correct. That's what we just talked about in terms of the number of square feet on the property.
Correct.
Mr. Furrow's report, he notes that the plans as filed shows, it was somewhat confusing because they showed structures to be proposed, quote unquote, that are actually built. If this is approved, would you go back and kind of address that issue and clean the plans up in that respect?
We could provide a separate plan that would just kind of document what's built versus what's still proposed. Because
thank you.
Application. That's part of the package.
I have no further questions for Mr. Michello.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is Anna. The tennis pavilion that was approved prior, you have prior approval but has not yet been built. Is that in or around the same location as the pool bar? Or is that on a totally different location?
Just give me 1 second. I'm going to go to the plan.
I don't have the old plans.
It's actually on here.
Oh, is it?
I zoom in close. I don't know, hopefully you can see this, but give it a second to load. There we go. So the pool bar is here, and there's a dashed outline on the plan here. It's a little faint, but that represents the footprint of the original approved tennis building location.
Okay.
It's in generally where the pool bar is now in the bocce courts.
Got it. So probably not going to get built there in the future.
No, it will not get built there in the future.
So this is Larry Jacobs. So to Rich Travellini's point, are you withdrawing the square footage for the tennis pavilion?
Why don't we have Mr. Donovan address that question? It looks like it's an impossibility in terms of you can't have 2 structures in the same place, but let's have Mr. Donovan comment on what his future plans are for that building as well as for the cottages.
You know, Gladstone Design has some very creative approaches. So if there's anyone who could sneak 2 buildings into the same spot.
Thank you, Mary Jane.
Don't take it as a compliment.
Let's swear in Mr. Donovan so he can go now, speak now. So Mr. Donovan, please raise your right hand.
I was just going to ask if Paul or Frank had any comments for the engineer before we move on.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Paul Ferraro. No, I don't have any additional questions. The items in my letter have been addressed.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I have
Frank?
a couple comments or questions before we move on.
I didn't think we were
George,
moving
yes.
on.
This is
I don't
George.
think,
Yeah.
Go ahead, George.
Okay. Paul, could you talk about the lighting and talk about the ordinance that Robert addressed? You know, and talk about that, please.
Yeah, in my letter, I asked that they address the conditional use standards for the lighting. They have addressed it. The lighting does comply with the conditional use standards. Notably, it's LED lighting, and that has significantly less overspill than the older lighting that we had when the ordinance was built. So I don't think there's going to be a significant impact from the lighting on these courts.
Who's in charge of making sure that, you know, what is written into the ordinances actually on the ground is, you know, the lights are turned off, or, I mean, who's in charge of that at the club?
All site plan enforcement is up to the job of the zoning officer. He would do it if there's any enforcement. He would have to do it.
No, I mean
generally
at the
on
club.
something
I mean
like this,
at the club. I mean, is there a book that says, look, at 11 o'clock the lights are out, and Johnny or Susie, you know, this is your job? I mean,
I think Mr. Donovan would have to answer that question.
I suggest you hold that for Mr. Donovan.
okay.
This is Nick Strakoff. I have one comment. It appears like this site is getting more and more activities on it, a small Disneyland almost. And would there be pressure then on more parking? You know, as more and more people stay here longer and longer? Has that been considered as an issue?
I think we can ask Mr. Donovan that, but in terms of expansion, basically we're trading one tennis court for 4 pickleball courts. The pool bar, you've heard, has been there for a couple of years, and we're adding a very modest addition to the cart storage barn. So it really isn't changing dramatically the function of the club as it is today.
Yeah, well, pickleball was going to take more people than one tennis court. And, you know, the bar area, more people are going to hang around having drinks, I would guess. And
Again,
I don't know, it just seems like there's more and more for people to do. That's just my comment. And that in turn may require more parking. That's where I'm coming from.
Is membership actually going to be increasing? I'm sorry, this is Scott Zupnik.
I hold that for Mr. Donovan.
Okay.
I have one last question for the planner and/or Paul. So, of the stuff that has been planned, we know that the pool bar has already been completed. Paul, what did you actually stop work on?
It was the addition on the cart barn.
That's where they are. So that's what was under construction in the midst of all this.
Right. I don't know if it was the zoning officer or the construction official went out there to look at something and then saw these structures that had not been permitted. And at that point, the stop work order was issued.
All right. So no other work has been commenced other than that cart barn expansion?
No.
Okay.
Paul, have you looked at the parking? Is what they have proposed and approved, or is that adequate for all the buildings that they're doing? Have you looked at that?
I've looked at it. The parking on a site like this is difficult to deal with because it's never a problem until it's a problem. If you have
I understand.
If you have very large activity on certain days, you might have an issue, but it would require multiple overlapping events. I don't think they happen very often, but I'd be interested to hear what Mr. Donovan says about his anticipated use of the site. I know in the past, for example, there has not been an issue with parking on the site.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, let's move on then.
We'll call Mr. Donovan.
Thank you.
So Mr. Donovan, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
And please state your name and address and spell your last name.
My name is Ken Donovan, Donovan. I live at 7 Robert Road in Brookside, New Jersey.
Thank you. Ms. Donovan, just for the record, just describe your relationship with the club in terms of your role there.
I'm one of the trustees and I'm the president of the club.
So you're familiar with the day-to-day operations of the club?
Yes,
I'm familiar with this application, obviously?
yes.
Okay. You've heard a number of questions have come up before. Why don't we talk about, there was an issue about turning the lights off at the pickleball courts. Can you address that for us?
Sure. Our lights, the lights that we have on the paddle tennis courts will be the same sort of system. They're all on a timer. The timers don't work after a certain time. So in other words, players can keep, they can turn lights on, but once it gets to 11 o'clock at night, their individual control doesn't work. So in terms of the control of the lights, the user of the court won't have options. The other part about the lights for the pickleball court is they will be lower, excuse me, lower than the lights on the paddle court. Just by first, paddle courts are raised. Also, they don't need to be as high. So I don't remember who asked the question on the tennis courts being lit, but the way tennis gets played, the ball can actually go much, much higher than on pickleball. Pickleball, the ball itself is a wiffle ball, and you'd be hard pressed to hit the ball 15 feet in the air. So there's no need for the lights. Down lighting, more like parking lot lighting, is more than adequate.
So when would the lights go off on the pickleball courts or the paddle courts? Is it at the same time, or are they different different timing at all?
No, I don't think so. 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Or
There were questions about parking on site and whether or not adding these pickleball courts will somehow cause parking issues on site. Can you comment generally on how the parking situation has been at the club over the past several years?
Sure. I'm sorry, did you say something, Tom? I'm sorry.
I just asked what the parking situation has been like at the club. Any problems you've encountered? Do you expect anybody adding these pickleball courts?
Yeah. No. So Mr. Ferraro is correct that on a particular day or two during the year, our parking lot is full, but it's highly, highly unusual. It relates to the membership number, to the member that asked the question about membership. Our membership is not growing, and the use of the courts or any amenity that we have on property is not being used by more people. It's just more amenities for the same number of people. So it doesn't put any more pressure on parking. And we are not growing. Our membership is, we're actually into waiting lists. So we are not growing. We can't grow the membership.
And I take it there's a demand for pickleball, which is why you're doing this?
Yeah, because we're all older and getting there, and tennis isn't as much fun anymore.
Now let's move on to the original tennis building. You've heard testimony tonight about the pool bar being essentially in the same location as the tennis building. Is there a plan to abandon that tennis building, or do you have any other thoughts about what may happen in that area on the site?
So what we are doing, and you know, to some degree, this is stream of consciousness as opposed to you know, any thought out plan. We are working through plans now for the overnight rooms and what has been called the tennis building. It won't be another tennis building. We already have what we call the courthouse, which is the small building that's nearer the paddle courts, which acts as kind of the hub or the headquarters for all racket activity. The tennis building, as it's described on the plan, would be much more of a fitness building. Our existing fitness building is next to the cart barn, and it is you know, fairly substandard compared to what else we have on property. So we would want to put a different a building with a different use, and certainly not on top of the tiki bar or the pool bar. You know, in that neighborhood, we're not sure exactly what it looks like. It would be the next. It would be 2 submissions from now. The submission before that would be the overnight rooms. And we're working through where they would best be located logistically, design-wise. So we're talking about that. We're not anywhere near, time for a submission to this board.
You mentioned the overnight rooms. You mean the cottages as we've referred them?
Yeah, they would still be cottages, probably not located where those are located, and probably not as big.
So I guess to kind of sum up, you're expecting in the future to come back with an amended application in some respect to change the cottages in some sort of a fashion. You haven't really figured that out quite yet. And you also plan to come back with an amended application for the so-called tennis building at some point, but it would not obviously conflict with the pool bar. It would be designed to accommodate the pool bar as well.
Designed to accommodate it in terms of space, not in terms of use.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think I've covered the questions, but board members, please jump in if you have other questions for Mr. Donovan.
Could you clear up the square footage then? Is the 127,000 with the tennis building or without it, since it's been approved but not built? Just clarify the square footage.
Yes, the 127,000 is with the tennis building.
So it's not going to be built. So then that 7,000 could be reducing that number.
We don't.
Correct.
We don't know. Again, we're going to be substituting the use. So a building will be built. It won't be a tennis building. It might be a fitness building. It's way too premature for us to know how big that building will be.
But I think we know the building as shown in the plans is not, it won't be in that location.
Correct.
We commit to that.
So that building will not exist, and any new building that you might on the site will be the subject of a new approval, presumably, right?
That's correct. We'd amend
So
another application.
So the answer to the chair question would be, you could take that 7,000 square feet off now because your entitlement to it was space-based. It was related to the location, which can't happen anymore. Is that fair to say, Tom?
I think that's fair to say, yeah, because you can't build it in the same place. We come back with an amended application that would have the actual numbers associated with it.
So for Tom and Rob, so looking at, I guess this is really Frank's review comments, 3.3. So while the two structures may not occupy the same physical space in that 127,849 square foot calculation, that does include both the tennis building that had been approved and the structure, I guess that's the pool bar that's in the same location.
Rob, can you clarify that? I'm not sure you did your calculation. Are you double counting the pool bar and the tennis building, or just counting the tennis building?
127,000 includes both the pool bar and the tennis building. It was the assumption on our part on the plans was that the tennis building the square footage was approved, but it would end up in a different location, as Mr. Donovan had pointed out, at some point in the future, in some other type of form.
So that proves my point that Gladstone was actually able to add together and still come up with extra square feet. So that would actually, to that point, you would reduce that, and that extra square feet that you'd be looking for would be in Mr. Donovan's next application.
One of the next applications. I'm not sure which order that's going to come in there.
And that may or may not bring you back to your 125,609 for this application.
Or at least it will rely on new proofs to get them to the new number.
I think that's a fair statement.
Still not
and of course,
clear.
the cottages may be changing in footprint.
This is Rich. What's still not clear to me is that was the prior approval based on the tennis building being at that location? And would it be the applicant's prerogative to build the 7,000 square foot structure, whether it be a fitness center or another tennis building, someplace else on the property without coming back here?
No, they would have to come back
No,
to the board.
Yeah, we require an amended application.
Okay, good. All right.
The bar area, is that lit too? And what are the hours of that? Is that beyond the pool hours?
Yes, it operates with the pool. So there is work lighting, if you will, underneath the building, so people can see what they're doing. But, and there's low level ground lighting around the pool, but there's no, it's not like the parking lot lights, except for locations in and around the pool area for safety. The pool's not open at night. Once it's dusk, people are gone. We close the pool.
And the bar?
And the bar,
And the bar, the whole area.
Okay.
The whole area, okay. That's what my question. Anyone else from the board will have any questions?
Yeah, Ken, you had made a comment, this is Jeff, you made a comment that you were holding your membership. Is that for the foreseeable future? So that your membership numbers are not planning to increase for the foreseeable future?
Correct. So to give you real specifics on how it works at Fiddler's Elbow, we are not on an annual, we're on an annual membership for each of our members, but that membership does not run with the calendar. So people's memberships roll throughout the year. So at any given point in time, our full number is 870 golf members, which is the typical golf course is 300 members per 18. So we're under what is typical. But at any particular month of the year, based on the number of applicants and the number of resignations, we might be at 875 or we might be at 865. So we might have, we call it the churn. If we know somebody's going to be resigning, we take on an extra member to fill that spot. So it would look like we have 871 members. But in terms of growing the membership from 870 to 900, we physically cannot operate with that big a number. So it's not our desire, nor do we have the physical ability to bring on any new members.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just just want to make sure that was the intent for for parking purposes and so forth.
Sure.
And then one other question I had for you: was there any additional lighting planned for the addition of by the cart building?
There is a safety light outside the door, like almost like an exit light, but no pole lighting, if that's the question.
Right. Okay. Yeah, just a quick. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else from the board?
Yes, I have a question. It's Lou. Lou, ask a question. Regarding the bar, will they be preparing food there at all? Is it a service station for food?
No. We have a full kitchen inside the pool building, and that's the only place that food is prepared. This is strictly for beverages.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Lou, I want to be completely clear. It's for beverages to be prepared. There are people who eat at the bar, but the food comes from the kitchen, which is in the pool kitchen.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else from the board? Paul or Frank, either one have comments?
I have nothing else.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one comment, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
To answer Mr. Trevelini's question, because I didn't want to let it go by without it being answered. The decision as to why this stuff was done before we came to you was my foolish decision. And the only reason I can give you for it is expediency, which is completely misfounded, because you're right, the township has been nothing but supportive from this board all the way down through inspections, and you've never done anything to make it otherwise. So I sent a letter to Mr. Ferraro when it happened. I meant it. I mean it now, and it's frankly embarrassing to me that it happened. So I didn't want to go by without answering.
Well, thank you very much for that. You don't want to become a Parsippany, so we do our best to be as friendly or as accommodating as we can with purposes that I think we think, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but I feel like we do a good job trying to be.
You do. The township does a great job, and that's why I am embarrassed for what I did, and it was my decision.
We thank you for your apology, and you're making things right now, so that's all that we can do. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Paul, I need you to explain to me so I understand this recreational use of the lighting as opposed to non-recreational use.
Sure, there's a conditional use standard in the ordinance for recreational lighting. That is as opposed to parking lot lighting. That's really the distinction. So there's a separate standard in the ordinance for recreational lighting, and it's a standard that was put in place initially and primarily for private tennis courts, for outdoor riding arenas, these types of features that are on some of the single family estates in town. And those were the standards that were established for that recreational lighting. They would necessarily apply to a site like this because it's recreational lighting and not parking lot lighting.
Thank you.
So Paul's a follow-up to George's question. So that recreational standard, for example, is much higher than the parking lot standard. So if I'm looking at this plan that's outed in yellow, the illumination levels are 20 foot candles or so on average versus a parking lot that would be like 5.
Yeah, 5 is relatively high even for a parking lot. Yeah, the illumination levels for recreational lighting are necessarily much higher because you have to see the ball that's moving at you.
Okay, all right.
I assume there's still no one from the public, but yes.
Is everybody hearing that sound?
Yeah, what is that?
What is that? Let's deal with that, please.
Sounds like somebody, it's like I don't know, like sharpening a knife or something.
Yeah, whoever's making it. Larry, what are you doing?
Movie.
They're sawing 2x4s.
I don't know who that is, whoever.
As far as I know, my beach scene doesn't have wave sounds. It didn't the other day.
Let's blame it on the next applicant and take it out on them.
Okay.
That sounds good to me.
Again, I assume there's still no one from the public, but we'll open it up. Judy, you there?
I have nobody. I'm checking email to see if anybody's emailing me. I have still no members of the public.
Okay. We will close it to the public. Tom, I think we're ready for a resolution.
Yes, if the board would entertain it, it's a motion to approve the amended preliminary and final site plan with the conditions of Paul and Frank's reports, and with the standard conditions, with also a condition that the 7,000 square foot tennis building will not be built until and unless there is a amended site plan application and approval by the planning board.
Well, actually, I think that last condition is, I mean, maybe I'm mistaken. It's Larry Jacobs, by the way. I thought Rob was going to submit a new set of plans that would show the net increase of the floor area.
Without the tennis pavilion.
Without the tennis. And then whatever they're going to do down the road, that's another application.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's the right way.
So we need a motion for the proposed resolution.
I'll move that resolution.
Second.
Who seconded?
I'm sorry, it's Larry Jacobs that made the motion.
Okay. Jeff second.
Second, Jeff.
Yep.
Okay.
So we need a roll call.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Committeeman Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Strackhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Travellini,
Aye.
Mr. Rodelius. Is that an aye? Sorry.
He's muted. George,
He's
unmute.
muted.
Lower right, lower left-hand corner, George.
If you can unmute, George, I don't.
George, click on your microphone.
Can you hear
There you
us,
go.
George?
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Mr. Rodelius.
yeah, no, I couldn't find the screen. It like disappeared. But anyway, it's fine.
Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Aye.
Mr. Zupnik,
Aye.
Ms. Orabana,
Aye.
Mr. Walter,
Aye.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
Aye. Motion is approved.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you, folks.
With the-
Appreciate it.
Good night and stay safe.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Tom, let's do one other thing though, Tom. You probably want to proceed effective immediately, and we didn't put that in the motion. So is the board willing to entertain it to be effective immediately prior to the written resolution, provided all other requirements are met?
Can they proceed?
I think it's going
Not
to be hung
without-
up in the non-essential construction.
Yeah, I don't know that, I don't know that under the existing EOs, this is going to be considered essential construction.
Well, assuming that may change.
No, it's not.
There has to be an optimist in the group, right?
Hope is not a strategy, Tom.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you want a separate resolution, Tom, for that?
Yes, it would be a motion to make it effective immediately, provided all other requirements are met. And by the way, that means the EO is lifted as to this type of construction. So.
All right, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
So Scott,
I got Scott as the first and Rich as the second. Roll call.
right, roll
Yeah.
call, please.
Mayor Jacobs,
Aye.
Committeeman Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Strackoff,
Aye.
Mr. Travellini,
Aye.
Mr. Rodelius,
Aye.
Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni,
Aye.
Mr. Zupnik,
Aye.
Ms. Orabana,
Aye.
Mr. Walter,
Aye.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
Aye. Motion approved.
Thank you very much again, and good night.
Thank
Good luck.
you.
Thanks.
Stay
Aye,
safe.
good luck.
Okay, we're ready now to hear Old Farm Orchards. The
This is
applicant
Board
ready?
of Adjustment, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
just bear with me one
No, I don't-
second.
No, this
Still
is
planning
still
board,
planning.
isn't it?
planning board.
Okay.
This is still planning board.
Gotcha.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. David Kronheim from the firm of Thumb Mueller on behalf of the applicant. Bear with me here. I guess it's a little new to everybody. So if we, we'll do our best to kind of work with the technology we've got. Pretty simple application for the board this evening. We're looking for a sign variance for a slightly larger sign on 206 than would be permitted under the township's ordinance. We believe there are safety issues involved with the size of the sign that would be permitted under the town ordinance. A larger sign would be more legible and more readily visible for traffic on 206. With that, I guess maybe we could swear in Paul Fox.
Yes. Yes. Paul, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Paul, please state
Okay,
your
let me-
name and spell your last name. Give
Paul
us your
Fox,
address.
FOX, with Apgar Associates in Far Hills.
And
Okay.
Mr.
Sure.
Kronheim, the board recognizes and accepts Paul Fox's qualifications as a professional engineer, so we still accept his qualifications, so please go ahead.
Paul, could you please just briefly cite your qualifications for the board and your education?
Sure. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the states of New Jersey and New York. I have a bachelor's of science degree in civil engineering from Union College and a master of engineering degree from Cornell University.
Go red. Okay. Paul, I've shared with the screen. I hope the board can see this. I've got the proposed variance plan here. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Paul, could you describe for me? And I'm gonna move my mouse cursor here over the proposed location of the sign. Paul, could you please just briefly describe the sign that that the Old Farm Orchards is looking to install this location?
Yes, this is a proposed freestanding sign that measures 7 feet in width and 5 feet in height, and that will, by the bottom of the sign, will be 2 feet above the ground level. And there will be lights on both sides of the sign illuminating the sign at night. The sign will be made out of wood harvested on the site and then supported by 2 wooden posts on either side.
Can you describe for me the reasons why you think this sign, a variance is necessary for a larger sign, please?
The permitted sign, I believe, is only 2 foot square, and on a highway where most of the traffic is doing 60 miles an hour, it's simply unsafe for people to be either slowing down at the last moment or slowing down traffic trying to find the location. So providing a larger sign improves public safety and makes it easier for the traveling public to locate the business.
And when if you're traveling north on 206, you would you have a limited sight to that sign due to the curve. Is that correct?
No, we actually went out and took a look at the site and picked out the sign location that would provide the most sight distance from each location from the north and the south. So when you go out there and take a look at it and turn to the right and turn to the left, it provides really an equal sight distance from either direction.
And you think the aesthetics of the sign would fit in harmoniously with the site?
Yes, it's made out of natural wood and it is finished with a natural finish. So when you look at the building, the barn that's been constructed up there, which is really quite a beautiful addition to the landscape of Route 206, it's going to blend in very nicely.
And you think a sign in this particular size is appropriate to address the visibility concerns you discussed in terms of the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit and cars driving in excess of 50 miles an hour?
Yes, in fact, when you go up and down Route 206, you look at the sign for the Willow School, you look at the sign for the FinPro business down in PPAC. Those are similar size signs that are simply necessary for safety purposes on a highway of this nature.
Okay, I think that pretty well states the case. Would you have anything else you'd like to add, Paul, to the application?
No, this certainly meets the negative criteria. We're not creating any substantial detriment to the public good, and we will not be impairing the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance.
Thank you. No further questions.
The picture of the sign, do you have a copy of that so that the board could see that? I think there was a drawing. I think there was a drawing.
Yes, if you just pan down to the left.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. I know we've seen it.
Lower left-hand corner of the drawing.
Yeah,
There
you go.
There it
Apologies.
is. Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
there'll be 2 gooseneck lights on either side of it that will provide shielded light to the sign face.
And that sign is perpendicular to the highway, isn't that correct? It's not
Exactly.
parallel, it's
That is
perpendicular.
correct.
Right in the front property line.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for this applicant? For this witness?
It's Larry
I have a
J.
few questions.
Is that the actual logo?
Yes, it is. There's a similar sign on the building presently.
Are y'all open for business yet?
I don't know if they actually have established hours at this point. They have been granted a license by the state so they can legally open the business at this point.
All looking to amuse ourselves when we're not in land board session.
Good amusement.
I have a question. This is Lou DeGiovine.
Yes.
This question is actually for Paul Ferraro, and maybe Paul Fox can add in here. Is there a setback for this sign, usually 15 feet from the property line? Is there a setback in this zone, this R10 zone? No. Nope.
There is a setback, but I don't recall what it is. Paul, do you remember what it is?
No, I think we looked at that, and because of this, the permitted size of the sign is so small, there is no required setback for the sign.
Okay. And then the other question I would have is, you're directly across the street from the Church of the Hills. I looked at their signs, and it looks like they have two signs that are about 2 foot by 8 foot, or maybe 2 foot by 10 foot. Did you look at their signs in terms of square footage and try to be compared to what they had there, just because they're across the street?
We really looked at it from more the lettering size as well as the width. Certainly, we don't need a sign as wide as theirs. It helps having a little bit of height because we can fit the logo in and then have the name below it. So it's really not too dissimilar in overall bulk appearance.
And the last question I have for you, it seems that the sign is only 2 feet off the ground, and that would kind of hinder your visibility from a sight line from far away. Was there a reason you only picked 2 feet off the ground?
Actually, when you look at the site, where the sign is being placed is really up on an embankment. Route 206 is kind of in a cut going through that curve. So I would guess that that sign is probably about 3 to 4 feet, probably about 3 feet above the actual pavement level. So it gets a little bit of added elevation just from the grade. So from where it's set back to.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Sure.
There was a photo as part of Frank's memo that really shows, I think, that that whole section there is on like a knob.
Anyone else on the board? Hearing none. Paul or Frank, any other further questions?
The only question I had relates to the hours of operation of the sign. When is it intended to be shut off, and will it be illuminated when the business is not open?
I did discuss this with the owner, and he agreed to comply with the hours of operation for the lighting of the sign, which is consistent with the township ordinance.
So it'll only be lit when the business is operational?
Correct. The approved operating hours are Monday through Friday, noon to 10 p.m., or also Saturday, noon to 10 p.m., and then Sunday, noon to 6 p.m. So that's what we would be looking for in terms of the approval of lighting for the sign.
Okay, Frank, anything more?
Only that I think in this circumstance, given the fact that this is a use that may become familiar to some travelers, but needs to be identified for fast-moving traffic, ordinarily we'd be trying to keep the signs as small as possible. I think under these circumstances, what's been proposed is a reasonable application, and I think we've heard testimony to that effect. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I'll open it up to the public. I assume there isn't anyone. Judy?
Checking emails and nothing from the public at this time.
Okay. Tom, I think it's up to you for a resolution.
Yes, yes, Madam Chairman and board members, you could consider a motion to approve the amended and preliminary and final site plan and this C variance for the sign, the size as proposed with the conditions discussed this evening and with Paul and Frank's reports, and the hours of the lights to be the same as the business hours described by Mr. Fox.
So moved. Scott Zupnik.
Second, Lou.
Roll call, Janine?
Yes, Mayor
Oh,
Jacobs?
Madam,
Yes.
well, 1 second, please. 1 second, please,
Yes.
Madam Chairman. Mr. Cronheim, would you like this to be effective this evening so that you can proceed immediately as long as you're allowed to under the executive order?
Yes, please.
When you're allowed to. And Paul, are you fine with that? Paul Ferrero, are you fine with that?
Yes.
Okay, so this motion will include the motion that it's effective this evening, subject to the requirement that the applicant comply with all other requirements.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay, Janine, we need a roll call.
Mayor Jacobs?
Can you close the exhibit now?
Oh, get rid of the exhibit?
Yeah.
Yeah, whoever is sharing the screen should unshare.
I'm sorry, that's me. Let me do that.
Thank you.
Apologies.
Okay.
Okay, roll call. Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Committeeman Hickey?
Aye.
Mr. Strackhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Travellini?
Aye.
Mr. Rodelius?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. DiGiovanni?
Aye.
Mr. Zupnik?
Aye.
Ms. Urbana?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Chairwoman Gutschall?
Aye. Motion is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
night.
John,
Night and good luck.
Have a good night.
get going with this.
What?
Ready for a little spider.
In like 3 weeks, buddy. You better have product.
Great. It's great. Can't wait to see you guys up there.
We will. We'll be there.
Okay, I think that's all we have for tonight. If anyone has any further comments from the board?
So this is Mayor Jacobs, and I do want to talk about a couple things. So I do want to mention some things that are going on in town that are COVID related. I'm going to leave for Colin to discuss the food pantry that we're running out of.
Having trouble hearing you, Larry.
It's someone sharpening that knife again. I mean, it could be a sling blade in the back room. I don't know. So we have the Bedminster Pop-Up Food Pantry that Committeeman Hickey will spontaneously go into a little bit more detail. So that's going on, and so we are certainly looking for folks to drop off food for folks in need here in Bedminster and locally. I did send an email around to the chairs and the liaisons for many of our boards and committees. We received from the Township Committee, we received a request from Delicious Heights to consider outdoor dining as they contemplate reopening. So that when reopening, they would like to be in position to have outdoor seating, and they put together a plan that is not yet quite a formal application for a license from the township. And I sent it around to the professionals and also the fire company, which I know is going to have some concerns about the way it was proposed. But it raises something that I discussed at Township Committee a few times before is, you know, we've sort of gotten used to living in this social distancing, isolation, lockdown environment, but at some point it's going to end. And whether it ends gradually or more suddenly, there should be an end. And we should be looking to our boards and committees and the subject matter expertise that each board is addressing to look at issues that would make reopening more expedient for our Bedminster residents and our Bedminster resident businesses. So it's something that you know, I want each board to consider and meet and come up with some recommendations that they can kick back to the township committee for full consideration, as we may, at the township committee level, talk about a reopening plan. And we want to be sure that we've heard from each of our boards and committees. So it's something that I certainly do want both master plan subcommittee as well as the full land use board to consider those issues. And I don't know what those issues are, right? So the issues for a restaurant and a pizzeria or nail salon are going to be different than a hardware store. But all those uses, and whether it's not just retail, it could be some of the office buildings or some of the standalone buildings on Main Street or in Pluckerman. How can we help these businesses get going in a way that doesn't compromise what we have here in Bedminster? So not necessarily easy recommendations and concerns to be raised, but it's certainly something that I want everyone to consider and come back to us.
Larry, can I speak? This is Lou. Physical therapy was considered an essential service, and we've been open all along on our Somerville Road location. And, I'm now part of Robert Wood Johnson Hospital. So we're getting dictates from them following all of the CDC, the hospital recommendations. So I'm more than happy to join in any committee that you might have, because I do have that medical background, as well as I've been operating through this whole process with the very strict and strict guidance from the hospital itself. So I'm more than happy to join in any committee that you might have together, whatever.
That's great, Lou, and that's very helpful. And years ago, we used to have the Bedminster Business Association. We don't have that anymore. So essentially, we've got to put this together from the township committee level and leverage the resources that we have through our boards and committees to try to get a voice for the Bedminster resident businesses. Once again, be they retail or professional, medical, we need to get Bedminster moving again. And so Lou, your participation in both the board as a resident business would be greatly appreciated.
Mayor,
number one, anything that we do in response to the executive orders or while the executive orders are in place, anything that we do, I feel should be perceived as a temporary exception to our zone plan and how our ordinances would otherwise be enforced. So, we want to say it's good for 90 days, 120 days, whatever the heck, we put some specific limitations on it. The other thing that I'm doing from an occupancy perspective in some of our buildings, I'm very careful not to cross the line between what is our responsibility as, well, in this case, what is our responsibility as the township at the township level versus what the business's responsibilities are with respect to personal protection of their own employees as well as their customers. So we're willing to kind of be a little bit flexible here during this emergency circumstances, but I think we really have to kind of deal with them on a case-by-case basis. But on the other hand, not put ourselves in a position where we're permitting something and the landowner or the property owner comes back to us and says, well, the town told me I could do it.
So it's interesting to see how other towns have acted upon this. Some of the towns, and once again, I mean, the way you see emergency declarations that have been issued for municipalities. So first off, emergency declarations are not made by the mayor or the township committee or the governing body. The emergency declaration comes from the OEM coordinator. So the OEM coordinator together an emergency declaration. He may work with the township committee or borough council, whatever the municipality is, to put that together. Then that emergency declaration gets sent down to the county for review and approval, whether it's gone too far, whether it's really addressing issues that are related to the current crisis. Then when it's approved, then you've got a declaration. For example, Bernard's did a very broad emergency declaration. And, that's one way of dealing with some of these issues, saying, hey, because of the crisis, between the township committee, the mayor, and the OEM coordinator, we're going to suspend signage requirements. Well, that's one way of doing it, and it's really only effective during the emergency declaration. But that's something that we're going to be looking, and we're going to be turning to our professionals to deal with. So we'll be asking John Blordo and Tom Collins to weigh in on how to do it, and to hear that if we're going to do anything, to do it on a temporary basis. Okay, how do we put that into effect? To some of the issues you're talking about, leaving some of these issues to the operator or to the property owner or the user. Well, some of the health issues, frankly, I want to hear from the Board of Health. And this same request directive will be given, has been given to the Board of Health. And it's not just looking at what Delicious Heights is proposing, but it's how do we, from the Board of Health, right, what are their recommendations going to be for any establishment that's going to open? So it's every board, every committees may have a different set of concerns and recommendations. But yes, it would be clear this is only during this reopening period and temporary, and not a replacement of our ordinances or codes.
Well, most of that gets handed down from the state, Larry. Aren't there going to be the state Board of Health is going to set these guidelines for us? I would think.
No.
Really?
No. I mean,
really?
If everyone has seen the executive orders, you see how the executive orders are drafted. They're drafted like 3 or 4 paragraphs. They're not detailed, and they are not meant to replace our ordinances and our codes. So once again, even if the state says you can open, and so one of the issues that we talked about before that came from historic preservation is those feather flags, right? There was an ordinance ready to go, a recommendation ready to proceed with an ordinance changing the position on feather flags. Well, now more than ever, those feather flags may be important to let, Little Pickles know that they're back in business or whatever, or it may be business. We're open. We've always been open. We never closed, but now we're really open, right? So
the state tends to be no size fits all anyway, right?
Right, and
so does that mean these health ordinances have to be all revisited now?
No, it's up to each committee should consider, or each board should consider, how are the stores in the King Shopping Center or the Somerset, I actually forget, whatever the Fresh Market Shopping Center is. How are those, what do those retail establishments need to get opening again? And is there anything that we can do from the planning zoning perspective that can help?
Larry, it's Lou again. I'd like to speak to a couple things there. The Department of Health gave the hospital very broad, vague kind of recommendations, but the hospital, being a hospital full of, healthcare workers and healthcare people, they came down and created their own set of policies, procedures to be compliant. So our policies and procedures are much more rigid and specific than what the state mandated or what the state put out. And I think for the lay person, the person that owns a bagel shop or whatever it is, they might need guidance from us because they're not sure where to get it from. Maybe from the Board of Health, our Board of Health, or whoever, say, as long as you are open, you have to have certain levels of compliance that the State Department of Health is recommending. So my concern is that, and I think that's where some of the guidance is needed, that we need to be able to give them specific recommendations on how to open safely, how to protect their staff, their workers, how to protect their clients, how to make everything work smoothly without crushing their business, and at the same time without creating a safety hazard in Bedminster, because we certainly don't want a micro breakout in the town of Bedminster.
Right.
So how do we do the land use part and leave the Board of Health to do the Board of Health part?
Right. And I was actually going to say that Colin is the Township Committee liaison to the Board of Health, and he sat on every Board of Health meeting, I think, for the last
2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
And just, you know, we contract the health services to the Somerset County Health Department. Dr. Namitha Reddy is the director of the Somerset County Health Department. She's an epidemiologist. She's a medical doctor and a public health degree. And frankly, I've been relying on her on many decisions, including the decision to keep our parks open. Before I made that decision and recommendation to the TC, I was on a phone call with Dr. Reddy to say, Dr. Reddy, if we can maintain social distancing at our parks and our trail system, is there any legit public health reason to keep them closed? And the answer was no.
Thank you.
So that made my decision very easy to bring it back to the Township Committee for full endorsement.
So common sense can exist in New Jersey.
And I didn't have to kick Penny off the trail when I saw him.
No, much appreciated, Mr. Mayor. Those parks are a lifeline in these times.
So I do want, you know, maybe for the next meeting, if some, you know, but your homework, each of you has some homework, including Tom, Frank, and Paul, to think about, you know, all the elements of the Bedminster businesses, what we have, and you know, we're a small town. you all know the businesses that are here, right? Whether it's you know, the 8 pizza places we have, or the 20 nail salons.
Well, again, I think it's individual. It depends on the business itself and where they're located and what space they have. I mean, again, I think maybe a application of some sort, it doesn't have to be a formal, but similar to what maybe Delicious Heights did, requesting something would be the appropriate thing. So we can look at the individual locations.
Here, you won't be looking at that.
No, what are we looking at then?
That comes to the Township Committee.
Okay.
That's a license for outdoor seating.
Okay.
So there's elements that we're going to be looking at the Township Committee, but we're going to look to the other boards and say, you know, just generally think about these issues. That's why I put the Delicious Heights proposal out there first as an example. But we're going to see.
I understand.
I put the outdoor seating as an example. I use the feather flags as an example.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are all smart. You can think of what those other issues are going to be for the different business sectors that we have. And so I do understand each one is going to be unique, but there could be some general guidelines from the planning perspective. Board of Health will have their own issues. Even, you know, I've even tasked it to the farmers market. See, what can we do with the farmers market to help some of these businesses come out of this dormancy?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Larry, is this something that we're going to be, I guess, brainstorming with that information in mind, and then as they come in through the Township Committee, then maybe we can, you know, spew those ideas out through you guys? Is that what you're thinking?
You know, I think if you can brainstorm on the general basis, and think of the small retail, think of the small offices, the medical professional spaces, and think about, you know, what they're going to be looking for. What, if you were in those positions, what would you want? What would help you? And what would be the limits? How far do we want to go? Right? Maybe it's screw them. We didn't like feather flags 6 months ago. Why are we going to give them an opportunity now? That's a legit position.
I know of at least 2 people who are dying to have the nail salons back, so we can probably brainstorm on that one.
For sure.
There's more than that.
Yeah. Hairdressers.
Everybody wants a haircut,
My
right?
lovely long hair here. I'm starting to look like Krusty the Clown, like I saw the other night.
You can get your hair cut outside.
Are we now looking at?
I need a Flowbee.
Are we looking at?
I think the Flowbee's coming back. There's a market for that now.
Tim, can you move? I just need proof of life. All right, there you go.
No, well, listen, anyway, not that
All
I'm
right.
not I'm right here. Something says California identifies nail salons as source of coronavirus community spread.
Right.
So sorry about that.
Surprise.
I love California.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
not essential.
The whole state is.
Well,
those
it's, Larry,
Yep.
Larry, these are very good food for thought ideas, and it's Rich has hit the nail on the head when zoning is permanent. Zoning is not temporary.
Mm-hmm.
To allow something by zoning becomes perpetual. So not that this isn't maybe, so the changing the ordinance of zoning is not something you can do and say will only last for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, because if you allow it for one day and it gets approved, it's forever. Now that's a general principle, but it's right in the statute that it's allowed that way. So,
And that's
your
why
idea-
and that is why you do see some of the towns having moved forward with emergency declarations to give
Right.
that temporary authority. And whether that gets tested in the courts, we'll see.
Right, and that's what I was going to say is maybe if you could gather a couple of emergency orders or administrative orders of a town like Bernard's or some other town, and maybe one idea is we could meet again next Thursday to go over them and get input from the planning board about what, if something was like this was allowed by emergency order, what might be some standards or what might be some limits that would be
Exactly. I'm not looking to change zoning. I'm not looking to change planning. I'm not looking to implement ordinances. All I'm saying is within your subject matter, come up with some recommendations.
Right.
And then we'll leave it to Bellardo and Zach Rubin. And Judy, if you could send Tom a copy of the Bernard's one, which is very broad. Do you have that from?
You're muted, Judy.
You're muted, Judy.
I have it somewhere. It's in my COVID-19 file, but that's very large.
Yeah.
One of the
Laura, can you
problems-
be king for the day too and issue a bunch of executive directives that allow permitting some of these things on a temporary basis?
It's allowed until he gets caught doing it.
I won't tell
Kind
you.
of like the governor.
John
Kind of
Bellardo.
like just like the governor and like the
Yes,
president.
exactly. Yes.
I'd like to say that in lieu of an emergency declaration and in lieu of changing a zoning ordinance, maybe a simple discussion and recommendation with a business owner would be more than enough for them to comply with whatever's needed for a short period of time. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
So here's I mean, look, I don't want to put this out there, but Delicious Heights has that banner in front of the building that says that they're open and they're available for call ahead pickup.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not a legal sign, but it's been there because everybody has it.
Yeah. Mediterranean just put one up this week too.
Yeah, right. Trattoria Mediterranean just put one up.
The community needs it really right now.
Yes.
They need to know where to access food.
Yes.
So what?
And they're going to need it as they transition into more of an open, to let folks know that what they have available, what they don't have available, or not, or this is the sign ordinance, comply or else.
Can you issue the summons and waive the penalty?
No, not exactly. What you do is you just either don't give a notice of violation because you use prosecutorial discretion not to. That's, our zoning officer. Or you give a notice of violation and don't bring it to a summons and complaint. The emergency order could help the zoning officer know that within these confines, don't bother to enforce.
Well, you know the way it goes. The perpetuation of a flaw tends to become accepted as the new standard.
Right. And this is why this all has to be this is not something that I want the TC to make a decision on our own. This is why I want to make sure that we discuss this with each of the boards on their specific subject matter. So for example, whether Delicious Heights wants to have outdoor seating, right? And if, that can get into a whole discussion about the history of why we have a restriction against it. And frankly, the more I find out about it, the more I question that to begin with. But the appliance store at the corner, right across the street, they may want to have, right now they've got one barbecue or something outside. Maybe they want to have a sidewalk sale. We've in the past have said no, right? I think that goes years and years ago.
Couldn't the township committee have a series of special use permits that are only available for a period of maybe 30 days or 60 days, depending on the input from the various boards and groups?
Oh, it's so good to have a local government expert on the phone or on the Zoom. Right. Thank you, Judy. That's an elegant way, frankly, of dealing with it, and having those, maybe having a list of special use permits that are available during this temporary time period.
And the idea of using the license power, Larry, is good too, because it can be temporary and can be limited. So I think you've got some great ideas, and you'll get the feedback. The Board of Health, certain things about the health department are not really waivable, and they're just required. And there are a lot of things about restaurants, food prep, food service, and things like that are not, they're just going to have to be complied with.
Right. But so I'm not saying waive the requirement to wash your hands before you make, when you go to the bathroom, back to the kitchen.
We're going to police that.
Colin can tell you all the dirty stories from the Board of Health.
I can tell you where to eat and where not to eat.
Ever again.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But the Board of Health's their recommendations and concerns might go the other way. Instead of being permissive on the special use permits, the Board of Health may provide those details that we were discussing before. They might provide, by the way, here's the guidance on if you're going to open and you're going to maintain social distancing in your store. Let's do a little primer on what social distancing is, because it's still remarkable to me that here we are, March 14th, 15th was the lockdown. And still there's a lot of folks who don't understand what it is. But that's something that Colin will be discussing with the Board of Health. But, frankly, environmental, historic pres, ag, right? Because we do have some farms that are going to need to, they need to ramp up again. So a lot of our boards and committees, as well as the fire department, right? So the fire department may have concern about if we go too far with outdoor dining or something else, because that might pose concerns that run afoul of their areas. So it's something that we'll be developing, but you guys are lucky that you're the first board that's meeting after I issued that email.
How lucky can we get?
How lucky. So that's my comment. Hope everyone is doing well, and that's it for me. But Colin does have to talk about the pantry.
You want me to do that now?
Yeah, that would be good, Colin.
Happy to. Thank you I'll give a 30-second commercial. We're now closing in on our fourth week of the pantry. When we started this, there was a question whether or not there'd be demand, and that question was quickly answered. So to date, we have served over 300 families with food. These are local families. And we have taken in donations every day from Monday to Friday, 9 to 12. And I want to thank many of you here. I've visited multiple times. I saw Scott Scholl this morning, bright and early, first thing, as well as Nick's wife dropped by this morning. We had 41 donations to date alone. Our intention is basically we take the food that we get in, we sanitize it, we sort it, and then we pack it into pantry bags. Those bags are meant to include at least 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and 2 dinners. And then we distribute those every Friday. And I will tell you, they're going to families in need who are in need through no fault of their own.
Who's got the knife?
Yeah, the knife is back. It's not me, I promise.
Vacuum or something.
I was going to say, it sounds like Zupnik, because he's probably got a fish he's going to cut.
He's muted.
Been muted all night. Been trying to be really good boy.
But I was going to say, when you look at the line that shows up, like tomorrow we're going to open it up at 9 o'clock. Friday's our distribution day. The line will start to form at 8:45, and you will start to see, especially on a number of the cars and vans, all the service people from this area. It's going to be the person who does the cleaning. It's going to be the HVAC guy. It's going to be the farm help that's out on Lamington and Cedar Ridge Road. It's folks, again, who, like I said, through no fault of their own, are now suddenly unemployed and need to provide for their families. And, the first question we ask when they pull up is, do you have children? And you've got a lot of families with children. We even have snack bags made up for the kids and everything. They're all so appreciative. We've also been partnering with a number of our local businesses who have been very generous. I'll tell you, Ira Katz from Far Hills Pharmacy bought a bunch of gift certificates for Bedminster Pizza and just said, hand them out, as well as supplying us with toiletries and other personal care items. The Suttons, Colleen and Doug, partnered with Grace Fellowship Church and have provided gift certificates to Butler's Pantry so people can get a meal. And I tell you, sometimes we'll just offer one of those to one of our residents, and they almost break down in tears. They're so thankful for just that meal. So many folks have come to us. We don't take perishable items, but we do take, potatoes and fruit and that kind of stuff. And a woman pulled up last week and said, I haven't had anything fresh in 3 weeks. So it really drives the point home of the need is there. And we really appreciate anybody stopping by, like I said, 9 to 12, Monday through Friday, and making a contribution, because it is all going to families in need. And that's my 30-second commercial. Thank you, folks.
And
Good on you, Colin.
And let me just put a little more color. Colin has been working that food pantry from day one, every day. So that's every day during drop off, every day during pickup. He personally washes every item that is dropped off. If it's in a bag, if it's in a can, if it's in a box, he wipes it down. So it comes from the donor, comes to a table, Colin washes it down. It goes to a staging area where everything is sorted. Then it goes back into the hallway right by the meeting room. And Colin and Robin and other township employees put together the bags to go out. And it is, we put this together in 2 days. It went from some volunteers in town who had asked if they could be put in touch with needy families in town. And we said, no, we're not. we're not doing that. We're not putting you directly in touch with someone else. But if you want to, we thought, okay, maybe if you want to drop it off in town hall and we can put something together. And Colin has been in charge of the food pantry at his church for years. We'll wait for the knife to be sharpened, and Colin just naturally just put this up. So for any of you who don't know about it, and you've got the opportunity to bring or drop food off, or to tell folks, or if you're in need, it's there, it's working, and we want to keep going as long as we're in this crisis.
That's fantastic. Fantastic.
Colin, again, I just want to say if there's anything that, would be specific for Mother's Day, perhaps, if there's a family specific that you might know, or, somebody that's got children or whatever, certainly let us know. We could maybe do something special for those people.
Will do, absolutely. Thank you. And I'll also put out on Facebook this weekend, as we run out of stuff, we know exactly kind of the staples that we need, and I'll publish that on Facebook this weekend because a lot of folks obviously go shopping on the weekend, so they can pick up the items so we can replenish for next week. But
yeah, that would be helpful. That would be helpful.
Any thought given to, as put my property management hat on here, any thought given to creating some kind of crowdfunding thing where we could help create a fund to support people paying their rent and things like that?
We're not touching money.
No.
Bedminster Township is not touching money. In fact, I've already told folks at here that we're not taking monetary donations at the pantry.
Okay.
So we are not touching money. I don't want us.
Something more for a charitable organization.
Any of our
That
employees.
creates a whole nother finance issue. We have to do bank reconciliations and trust accounts and no.
And frankly, I don't even want to get into, hey, I dropped off $400. Where did it go? Give us $400 of tuna.
Sounds like borrowing trouble to me.
Yep.
Okay.
But certainly
But
give
Rich,
cards.
if your church wants to do something like that.
Yeah, exactly. More of a charitable organization's purview.
Are we meeting next week?
I don't think we are at this point, are we, Paul?
We had nothing on the agenda.
No.
So the only issue would be if you want to, for the planning issues that we discussed. And if you feel that can be held at another meeting, we can do it at another meeting.
Well, our next meeting would be in June then, June 4th.
We got.
I want to be.
The governor
I want to
extended
be.
the crisis for another 30 days.
I want to be where Judy is for the next meeting.
Scott and I are hanging, or Jeff and I are hanging out there.
Yeah, how'd you
I
get
can see
there?
that.
So who's got the cold corona?
Oh,
We got plenty of Corona, Scott.
Judy's reaching into the cooler right now.
Well, then I'll leave it up to you, Mayor, if you want to have us meet next week, if that would be.
Well, Lou, what do you think? Do you think that the gist of, for retail, for professional space, whether it's signage or what else can we do from the special use permit side to make it easier for businesses to get going again? And
Hold
Anna,
on, Lou,
this should be,
you were muted.
I'm waiting for Anna to jump in.
Larry.
You put together a store.
A couple of them. Yeah, I don't know. I need a minute.
I think a lot of it's going to be driven by the consumer. Comfort levels, how close they're going to want to be to one another.
Well,
I agree.
I mean, it's going to be very site specific because requirements for a store that's in the King's Shopping Center is going to be different than Delicious Heights, right? Like there's space considerations that some businesses just aren't going to be able to do the things that others can.
Right, and
Totally.
you maybe in some places you might be able to queue folks outside, and other places you can't. Don't know.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, you look at Delicious Heights, they do have room in their parking, they have space. Luna Russa, where are they going to go? You know, I don't see it. So I think
Well,
it's also
well, we'll see if Luna Rosa comes back.
Oh,
come
and
back.
look, every business owner is going to have to make decisions for themselves and their clients. I mean, I walk into somebody's office, it's masks and gloves and bleach wipes, and it gets peeled off when I walk out the door, and my clothes don't make it in the house, and you know, it's awful. This is crazy. You don't know where anybody is.
But those issues are not the planning issues.
No, they're not.
No, exactly right. They're not.
They're not. It's the business owners and their individual clientele is going to have to deal with this.
Larry, if I could just say something here, and Judy touched on a little bit before. You're talking about, you know, should there be a relaxation of signs or this or that and the other thing. I think virtually all of that is covered by the special use permit process that we have. If somebody wants something, they can ask the township committee for it.
Right, but look, if we had if we had a chamber of commerce or we had something like that, that could voice those concerns, we don't have that. So I'm asking all you guys to put your private side hat on and perhaps come up with the constructs for what these special use permits might be. Signage, parking, outside seating, outside sales, whatever that is. The things that we would typically say no, what would from the planning perspective, once again, within the subject matter expertise, what comments, concerns, recommendations are out there?
Can anyone hear me?
I feel like it's going to go beyond the special use permit. So let's take the case let's take the case of Delicious Heights for a second. So you're okay with the use, but how many tables, how far apart? Does that become a site plan review issue at that point?
No, that's part of the
No, it's not zoning.
No, that becomes
licensing for an outdoor seating. There's currently a process for that. You can apply for outdoor seating for 1 year, and I think if you go the second year, then you have to go get site plan approval. I think that's the way.
But if you're doing that, you're going to want to include the social distancing standards, aren't we?
Right, but that's, to me, those are requirements that are going to come down from somebody, I think, besides the town.
Because 3 years ago we did it for Fresh Market, right? The outdoor seating there.
That was a specific site plan approval, but outdoor seating in the context of people sitting outside and being served outside is different than the outdoor benches.
Right, we did that, I believe it was, Judy, was it last year or 2 years ago for Trattoria Mediterranean?
2 years ago, and it was for a specific amount of time.
So we have some history before that. And by the way, you know, hey, master plan committee, which has a meeting tomorrow, you know, the no outdoor seating, I'm not sure if that was that a planning issue or was that something else? But that goes back to the Don Cross days. Do we still feel that, you know, a ban on outdoor dining is something we want?
What was the rationale behind doing that?
I don't know.
I don't think it's a specific ban. It's just not listed as a permitted use. There is a
and you look at the outdoor dining over in Peapack and Far Hills at Cafe Azura and places like that. It's great.
Oh, you've got to allow outdoor dining. It's the opposite. Anytime you deny that, you're basically cutting your nose off to spite your face. The question is, can you fit it? Where's the sidewalk? All those questions. But
the prohibition that exists in the ordinance is for drive-in restaurants and drive-through restaurants. Drive-in is the old Stewart's where you drove up and the car hop came out to your car. Drive-through is obviously a drive-through restaurant. Those
Sonic is the new model, I guess.
So, I mean, perhaps you know, on this Zoom conference, Paul and Frank and Judy might have the most insight into what Don Cross was thinking way back when. And it was my understanding that Don was the one who, hated the outdoor dining, and maybe Joe Metelsky as well. Like, I don't know. I don't know the source of what, to Tim's point, I don't know why we don't have it. But we don't. That may be.
And I probably don't object to it, so I think it would be great to have it.
Larry, I think there are a whole
Can't
series
get a
of
burger nowadays
recommendations.
without spending $15.
Yeah.
There are a whole series of recommendations that come from what's being done around the country and around New Jersey that we should look at, just kind of list them and talk about them. And then I think there are some both process and substantive changes we might want to consider to make the villages more vibrant and to deal with this whole COVID business at the same time.
So it sounds like maybe we should meet next Thursday and just have a open conversation about things. Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah.
Maybe we could structure it a little bit so that we have an agenda and, follow along about a couple of things. And if the members want to suggest to you, Carol, what should be on that agenda, I'll help to put that together. But it'd be nice to guide the conversation because there's so much to talk
Yes,
about now.
right. We have to have an agenda. Yeah.
Judy?
Otherwise, we won't get anything.
Do we have guidelines for what the special use permits look like now? Or is it literally some random special use?
I can give you some samples of what we've done the last 2 or 3 years.
I think
that would be helpful. That would be
Ask for
helpful.
virtually anything.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I think the last one we did was for Little Pickles, wasn't it?
For their outdoor seating, yeah.
One of the questions you really have to ask is whether or not that special use permit is appropriate if what we were talking about is an adjunct to a use, maybe after COVID, that's even more appropriate than ever, outdoor dining. That ought to just be part of the permitted use, and then the planning board reviews it as part of the application, and they can do it for as long as they want, as long as the weather lets them. There are certainly lots of things that should stay in that special use permit category. I don't know that outdoor dining wants to be one of them.
Yeah, you might have both. You might to deal with it immediately, you need the special use permit. To deal with it in 2 months, you could change the zoning ordinance to make it permanent. And they're 2 different subjects.
Well, for now, it would substitute because of the weather, so it would be good for now. And then we can,
That's right.
Talk about it as a more permanent situation, perhaps later.
Can anyone hear me? This is Lou.
Yes?
Yeah. I would say, I think we should have a meeting next week because some of this stuff is going to take time to implement or just get into place. And people are going to need help sooner than later. So I say a meeting next week is a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should do it. So we'll plan to meet next Thursday. Okay.
Well, I think you all are doing a pretty good job with these Zoom meetings. That's pretty amazing. And I definitely like what I look like in that picture way better than if you were looking at me right now. I apologize.
We need to get your virtual background, Frank.
Yeah, I know. I got you right. I got to do something about
Frank, I'm going to get a picture of myself at 25 for the next meeting.
that. Okay, you know what?
Me
It's
too.
a challenge now. We could all do that.
See what we all look like.
Yeah, that's, we all have to do that.
Yep.
All right. Do I have a motion to close for tonight?
So
moved.
Seconded.
All right. I'll be well.
Hold on, I've got Jeff as the motion and George is second. Is that all right?
Yes.
Works for me.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, all be well, and we'll see you next week.
Great job,
Early.
everybody.
Good job, everybody. Good job.
So long. Good night.
Stay safe, people.
Good night.
Night.